Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jonathan Bailor here, and I am back with another episode of the SANE Show. Very excited about today's show because we are going to cover something very new and novel. Not the same stuff you've been hearing all over the internet and maybe potentially even previously on the SANE Show. I'm very curious about it too. We're here with Dr. Christine Schaffner, and we are going to talk about something which, when you initially hear it, you might be a little like, energy healing what is this? So Dr. Christine Schaffner, tell us a little bit why we shouldn't be like energy healing.
It's a great question. And, that's exactly why I want to put a lot of this information out there, and that the world of energy medicine is actually really grounded in science. And so my, goal is to educate our community and our audiences about this whole idea of what we call biophysics. So this is the way that our body communicates with energy and frequency and light. And, I think we have a lot of information about biochemistry. So that's about the foods we eat and kind of the nutrition that we have, and all the supplements and functional medicine, and all of the things in naturopathic medicine and detoxification, and that's really critical, of course, to our well-being, and I think it's of course important. But there's this whole realm of what we call biophysics. And so even in conventional medicine, we know that the heart has a strong electromagnetic field, and we can measure that with an EKG, or, we have brain waves that actually get measured with something called an EEG. And so we have, conventional tools that kind of pick up and evaluate, our body's, electromagnetic energy. And so my goal was to, just dive deeper into this, this idea and this understanding. And the work we do at Sophia Health Institute, we see a lot of patients with chronic illness who have been struggling for a long time. And so I feel like we have a ton of tools around biochemistry, and we integrate a lot of tools around biophysics. And the knowledge around biophysics allows us to also accelerate and kind of amplify what we're doing on a biochemical level, so people can get their life back more quickly. And so that's just been a big, passion and desire of mine. And Dr. Klinghardt, who's my mentor and been practicing for a long time, he, in his reflection, he sees, and I agree, that when patients integrate tools not only with biochemistry but also with biophysics, their healing is more elegant, more fluid, more results oriented. And so that's the conversation we really want to have.
It makes a lot of sense. I love that you anchored it in something that we've all very likely heard and accept as self-evident true. Like there's things like an EKG and there's things like an EEG. So there's no debate about whether or not the body and energy are related in some way. Like that's not crazy talk. So help us to maybe bridge the gap though between like these self-evident things and energy healing. Like there does seem to be a bit of a rift there. What's going on?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, one of the interviews I have done, and one of the mentors on this level that I have really enjoyed her work, her name is Dr. Beverly Rubik. And she's one of these frontier scientists who's, is trained in biophysics and, UC Berkeley, and she's really smart. And she talks about what's called the Biofield. So it's giving language to this electromagnetic energy that is emitted from the body. That also includes this idea that we have these light emissions, or the biophoton theory it's called, that our cells and living things emit low emissions of light. And this is kind of the bridge in the conversation. In ancient traditions, we've heard of ideas like chi and prana and the acupuncture meridian system. And so it's this kind of term that we use with the biofield to integrate these concepts, and it can be measured. And so she's using things like gas discharge visualization, which is a form of technology that actually can measure, the electromagnetic energy coming off of the body, as well as the light emissions coming off of the body. And so that's, really exciting. And she actually put that term biofield in PubMed in the 1990s and really developed these ideas around biofield science and looking at therapeutics that affect the biofield. And so I like to use that word as kind of like a bridge between these kind of woo esoteric energy concepts and kind of this, grounded scientific nature that we're all, grappling with as well. And what's really, kind of flips the script is that where I want to see the conversation kind of changing and shifting. And that's why I've, interviewed a lot of people and try to educate myself and go deeper into these ideas, that there is this theory, which, science actually does show, is that our biofield actually instructs and organizes our physical body. So it's not this kind of random emission of electromagnetic energy or light that's coming off of the body, and it's just kind of this random occurrence, but there's actually this field of energy that is almost like a blueprint and kind of a organizer for, health and coherence in our physical body. So, it turns turns medicine a little bit on its head, and shifts the focus, but it's also so empowering because there are so many tools that help to shift our biofield that can really speed up and kind of break the limits of where we think we can go if we were just to focus on biochemistry alone.
What is the relationship, if there is any, between the biofield and this inherent concept it seems like a lot of people and cultures have, where they'll be like, I get a weird vibe from that guy,
Mm-hmm.
or I get great energy from her, or
Mm-hmm.
it seems like dogs and horses love you. You must give off a certain energy. Are those related in some way?
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And, we have a language right in our society around this, but we just think it's, just maybe random or just kind of, writing it off, but it's actually a real phenomenon. And I've interviewed a woman named Lynn McTaggart, and she actually has a book called The Power of Eight. And she talks about when you get a group of people together, how, essentially miracles can happen. But aside from that, she wrote another book called The Field. And so she talks about this field of energy that we're highly interconnected, not only as individuals with other people, but just with our environment. And when you kind of can think about what you just said, when we kind of like take our mind's eye and not only see our physical body, but we have this extension of energy. They say the biofield is about 6 feet outside of us. And so when you think about we're interacting energetically before we're interacting physically with people. And that's the language electromagnetic waves and how that actually communicates energy. And so Lynn McTaggart, not to go down a rabbit hole, she has a beautiful book, and she talks about scientists who talk about the brain is actually a receiver, and we kind of transmit the brain actually is a way to kind of convert this electromagnetic phenomenon into, biochemistry. And so it just kind of changes your way of, thinking about, reality, in a lot of way, and what we've been taught, especially if you have studied medicine or, any of these other things. So I think it's a phenomenon for absolutely that there is a grounded science about what is happening and what we're experiencing. And I think part of the things that we can all learn as part of the human experience is how do we get in touch with this other sensory experience so we can inform ourselves and our bodies and use just this other insight and capacity that we have, to interact with our environment.
Knowing of this additional way of looking at the world and way of looking at people, very, very helpful. And I could imagine that people might hypothesize that, okay, if I sleep better and I eat better and I move better, it will not only help me physically, but it will help me energetically. Okay, that's cool. But let's look at it from the other direction, which is, so if not just as sort of existing positive lifestyle changes now, look, it doesn't just help you physically, it helps you in this sort of energetic way. Let's look at it from the other direction. What can we do, or can we do something from the energetic realm that will then sort of push back and help with the other aspects of our life?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are tools and modalities, and I've interviewed a number of experts over the years, and there are some tools that create more coherence, which is, just think of it as flow, that actually can direct our physical body. And the things that block coherence are things like trauma. So our trauma history can be stored in this biofield. And I've interviewed a woman named Eileen McCusick, and she uses actually tuning forks to identify where there is this incoherence in the biofield and how these emotions or this trauma needs to actually be acknowledged and released, and healing needs to happen in order to create more flow, in our bodies and in our energy field that translates to, physical health. And so, that's one way to look at it. There are other modalities, everything from something called frequency specific microcurrent that actually gives us frequencies they're called resonant frequencies. Every organ or system has a resonant frequency, and when it's out of balance, we can put frequencies into, through our biofield into our physical body to create more health in that organ system. I've interviewed over the years Dr. Garcia, who talks about biomagnetism and how, paired magnets can actually, restore, flow in our biofield and in our physical body. And then, going back to the trauma, it's not only tuning forks, but there's something called energy. It's tapping, EFT, so emotional freedom technique rather. And so that can actually, help to the body to process and release, stored traumas and emotions. And so, so there are different modalities that we can, definitely use to help create more order and coherence in our energy field to instruct our physical body. And then just this other, why I think this is an important conversation to have these days is that there's more awareness around EMR or electromagnetic radiation, and how cell phones and Wi-Fi and smart meters and all of these things actually have an effect on our electromagnetic nature in our body. And so I think when you have a concept or a visual of like, okay, we're not only our physical body, but there's this whole other electromagnetic field that we, have as part of our body, and how these other influences. That's why we're trying to educate people about, not having a cell phone by your head, or, making sure to turn your Wi-Fi off at night, or, getting a break from this constant exposure that we're all kind of bathed in every day.
One of the neatest things about what we're talking about here is I know you personally, you're not just theorizing about this. This is something that you practice with real people every single day. And if this was all nonsense, you would have gone out of business a long time ago. So can you tell me a little bit about maybe one of the stories that most warms your heart, where you've seen this put into action impacting someone's life?
Yeah, I have, so many different stories. And, one of the things I appreciate you sharing is that, the way that we practice is that we're all, trained either naturopathic doctors or medical doctors. We have this really scientific part of our brains, and, we acknowledge and, appreciate that. And then Dr. Klinghorn actually developed a form of muscle testing called autonomic response testing. And this is a way of really, not only getting objective information from a physical exam that we do with patients, but it's also a way that, I'm interacting with the patient's biofield and also opening myself up to, more information because of really just working one-on-one and hands-on with someone. And so we use that as a tool to help us prioritize and to help us really get the treatments that are needed at that time for the patient. And so, I have one story that just has been with me for a long, especially this year, because one of my patients who's been so sick, and she, traveled to so many places before seeing us, and, she's really recovered her health, and she has used a combination, of tools, not only the biochemical tools, but she was really open to also doing, trauma work and energetic work. And she was also open to, using different frequency modalities, not only frequency specific microcurrent, but different, there's something called Rife technology, but using these other biophysical tools that actually communicate and support and help to treat these pathogens and toxins that we're trying to help people with. And so, her story is just so beautiful, because she's also now embracing her journey, which was hell. And, she's, becoming a health coach and writing a book and really trying to educate people. So I just, those are, the stories that keep us going. And, it's just so rewarding to see people get their lives back, and really to be able to transform their really hard experience and see the silver lining in it and give back to share their journey and help others. I think that's just such a beautiful full circle, experience when that can happen.
With all this study and hands-on experience, do you feel like you personally have developed a sort of sixth sense superpower to detect let's say, the everyday person walking down the street saying, I get vibes from that person. Do you have like a super ability to get vibes from people?
It's funny you say that. And we all have different perceptions of ourselves than probably other people have of ourselves. A lot of my patients have told me that I'm highly intuitive, and I just kind of think of it not just this, I think we all have this ability and this nature of ourselves. And I just see myself, I've exercised a certain muscle, for 9 years, where I am open to just this patient interaction where, again, I'm gathering clinical information. And then I'm open to, when I'm assessing the patient, just being open to maybe this other experience of getting information so I can help the patient. And I'm always happy to be, I might think, okay, we're going in this direction, and then have a thought or kind of an intuition or, a direction that I'm, being downloaded with that, takes us into this whole other trajectory that, the patient needs. And that, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? How do we really treat our patients individually and acknowledge their own uniqueness, and get out of this idea of like cookbook or cookie cutter, medicine, because, what's one person's, therapeutic, cure could be another person's poison. And I've seen that a lot. What works for someone does not work at all for another. So yeah, I have a long way to go, I feel, in developing this part of myself, but it's, I just feel real joyful and grateful that I work in a clinic and patients are open to, coming to us and want this type of, medicine, especially because the average person who sees us is, 24 doctors. And so, the conventional system doesn't always have space or a language to look at what patients need in the appointment.
You mentioned the word language, and we've been talking about having an additional field of information. And if you don't mind me asking, I know it's also, you mentioned joy and gratitude. You recently had a whole new source of joy and gratitude brought into your life, your little one. And since since verbal language is not available, obviously, when children are very, very little, have you found this sort of additional field of information to impact your ability to communicate or interact with your very young child?
Oh, it's so funny you put that. I was reflecting this morning. I'm like, here, Anne Marie's 14 months as we're, recording this. And I was just thinking how she has no language, but she's so communicative. And I feel that, she communicates very well with me and shares what she needs. And I also probably have that mother's intuition to also anticipate what she needs. And so it's going to be really fun to actually see her actually develop language, because it's just so amazing, right? That we can communicate with these beautiful young children before the verbal part of their brain turns on. And I feel like I always say Anne Marie's she's a great communicator. And I also feel that I'm also trying to listen, as well. And I'm open to, her sharing with me what she needs, even if she doesn't have the words for it yet.
That's beautiful. Well, Dr. Christine Schaffner, where can we go to learn more about what you're up to in this whole field of information?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's drchristineschaffner.com, and you can find out more about me and what I'm up to. And then I practice medicine primarily at a clinic called Sophia Health Institute, and that's outside of Seattle, Washington, and Woodinville. We have an amazing team of practitioners. I feel really honored to be able to work with such a great team. And our website is sophiahi.com.
Can you give the name of your website just one more time?
So it's sophiahi, like healthinstitute.com.
Beautiful. Well, Dr. Christine Schaffner, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Jonathan.
Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this chat as much as I did. It's always wonderful to discover entire new fields of information, especially when we may have had some intuition around them. And now we can put language and science and more, not formality in a negative way, but we can have more understanding and then ability to influence this. That's so empowering and cool. So I would definitely encourage you to check out Dr. Christine Schaffner's work. And remember, as always, stay sane.